You assume that fire destroys peace. You associate it with agitation, movement, and loss of control. You believe that stillness can exist only when all intensity ends. Yet Shams Tabreez questioned this assumption. He said the same force you fear as fire is the very power that reveals stillness. For him, stillness was not escape from intensity, but the truth discovered when intensity is understood. Fire, he said, does not only consume, it clarifies. It burns away the false, leaving only what cannot be disturbed. What you call peace may merely be absence of friction, but Shams pointed to a deeper state. The stillness that appears only after illusion is burned. Can the very flame that unsettles you be the one that reveals your quietest truth? You avoid intensity because it threatens your familiar balance. You prefer moderation, neither too deep nor too real. When something within you stirs with force, you call it danger. Yet what you fear is not the fire itself, but what it exposes, the instability of everything you rely on for identity. Shams observed that people call the dissolving of illusion chaos. They resist transformation, naming it suffering. You want calmness without confrontation, peace without purification. But can stillness truly exist if the noise of unexamined thought continues beneath it? If you fear the inner fire, do you not also fear the truth it reveals? For Shams Tabreez, fire was not a symbol of passion but of knowledge, the intelligence that reveals reality by consuming what hides it. To know is to burn. The mind's false images cannot survive clear attention. When Shams spoke of fire, he meant the power of awareness itself, the sharpness by which illusion ends. The self resists because its continuity depends on concealment. True knowledge does not add. It removes. And what remains after this removal is not confusion, but clarity without effort. If knowing means losing the comfort of belief, do you still wish to know? You often call quiet avoidance peace. You retreat from thought and call it clarity. Yet Shams warned that silence achieved by suppression is only temporary. It is the pause before old illusions return. Stillness born of fear is not stillness, but suspension. To be calm, because nothing challenges you, is to remain asleep. Shams called this the tranquility of ignorance, the calmness of the closed mind. When your peace depends on protecting illusion, it is fragile by design. What happens when understanding begins to question the silence you thought was safe? Shams taught that the true fire is awareness examining itself. Each thought brought into understanding loses its false claim to authority. The mind is purified not by resistance, but by attention. This attention burns without violence. It clarifies. When a thought is seen completely, it no longer dominates consciousness. It dissolves into understanding. The purification is not emotional but intellectual, the removal of distortion. What remains is thought functioning in service of truth, not of ego. You cannot control this process. You can only allow it. When clarity begins to undo confusion, who is left to call the process mine? There comes a point when awareness confronts the structures that sustained its illusion. The mind trembles as its foundations weaken. You call it crisis. Shams called it unveiling. The self cannot coexist with total understanding because understanding sees through it. What feels like loss is the collapse of confusion. The fire here is not emotional turmoil but the force of truth correcting error. When belief dissolves, the witness stands alone, not as a person, but as consciousness itself. Stillness begins where ownership ends. If the one who struggled to be peaceful disappears, who or what remains to disturb the mind. When the fire of understanding completes its work, there is no longer an effort to be calm. Shams said the mind becomes quiet, not through discipline, but through the ending of division. Stillness is not something you create. It appears when nothing opposes it. You do not silence thought. You see through its necessity. This quiet is not emptiness. It is completeness. The same fire that once frightened you now reveals peace. You realize that stillness is not the result of control, but the natural state uncovered when resistance ends. Can there be stillness without something that was first disturbed? For Shams Tabreez, silence was not the opposite of fire, but its fulfillment. When all that is false has been burned, nothing remains to speak, not because speech is forbidden, but because truth no longer requires language. Intensity and stillness meet as one act of being. Awareness neither flares nor fades. It simply remains. What once appeared as burning is now understood as the activity of understanding itself. When both motion and rest are seen as appearances within awareness, can you still separate the seeker from what is sought? You began as a seeker trying to manage your mind, hoping for peace as a reward. Yet Shams taught that effort itself is the continuation of separation. The seeker must disappear for truth to be seen. Through fire, control dissolves. What remains is attention that no longer chooses sides between agitation and calm. It simply witnesses both as temporary movements. The self that once sought stability is replaced by awareness that needs none. You do not become enlightened. The illusion of being separate from enlightenment ends. When striving ends, what remains except the intelligence that was always awake? Shams saw that opposites, movement and rest, fire and peace, self and truth, exist only for the divided mind. Awareness does not alternate between states. It contains them. What seems to change is the mind's interpretation, not reality itself. The fire that consumes illusion is the same stillness that holds all motion. Understanding burns, yet nothing real is harmed. This is the paradox of unity, transformation without loss. When you stop defending the boundaries between opposites, they dissolve into a single act of being. Can there be any conflict when everything moves within one undivided awareness? As inquiry deepens, the urgency of questioning fades. You begin to see that every question was born from the illusion of distance. The mind, once restless to know, now recognizes that it was never apart from what it sought. Shams said that true understanding ends inquiry, not by suppression, but by fulfillment. When knowledge is whole, thought has nothing to protect or prove. What remains is comprehension so clear it does not need language. The seeker disappears into the known. If truth is no longer outside you, what meaning remains for the word search? The fire has done its work. There is no effort left, no illusion to sustain, no movement to resist. Stillness is revealed as the natural expression of understanding, not the silence of withdrawal, but the quiet recognition that nothing is apart from awareness. Shams Tabreez called this the perfection of peace, the stillness that includes all motion, the fire that no longer burns because there is nothing left to consume. You do not reach this by becoming still. You recognize that you have never moved. If awareness is the ground of all experience, what remains to disturb it? The journey began with conflict between fire and stillness, between the need for peace and the fear of intensity. Shams Tabreez revealed that both arise from one source, awareness correcting itself. Fire was not destruction, but purification. Stillness not escape, but realization. The script leads from avoidance to endurance, from endurance to insight, from insight to dissolution, and from dissolution to quiet recognition. In the end, nothing is created or destroyed, only understood. The mind's fire and the heart's peace are one truth seen from two sides. Stillness, therefore, is not what follows burning. It is what the burning reveals.